The Cardinals are spinning their wheels, and the fans have certainly taken notice. What's going on, everyone, and welcome in to this edition of b-schaeff Daily. Brenden Schaeffer with you here Tuesday morning, August 27th, 2024. Welcome back into the channel. It's been a few days since we have recorded any Cardinals content. My wife and son and I took a trip to Louisville over the weekend, took in a Louisville Bats game there, the AAA Stadium, Louisville Slugger Field, or Stadium, one of the two. It was a great time. They took on the Braves affiliate, the Gwinnett Stripers. Just a good weekend to get away with my wife and my son to have a little quick family trip. That meant, though, no Cardinals content over the weekend. You guys all saw the Twins and the Cardinals do battle over 3 games. Cardinals take 2 of 3 from Minnesota up in Minneapolis. Friday night was a really well-pitched game by Andre Pallante. We did talk about that on the channel the last we left you as the Cardinals took game 1 of that series. But we said, hey, this could be a chance to sweep if Sonny can do his job on Saturday. Well, he decidedly did not. A couple of home runs allowed, another bad start by Sonny Gray. He's been a disappointment relative to what the Cardinals were hoping to get from him this season. It doesn't mean he's been terrible, but he's been disappointing compared to the ace that they were really hoping to be able to lock into their rotation. But you know what? The Cardinals didn't score on Saturday either, so it's hard to pin all of it on Sonny Gray. Just a bad game on Saturday. Sunday, they come back to get the big knock from Lars Nootbaar late to come from behind. Ryan Helsley shuts the door, and they are able to win that series. But then you start off the big Mike Shildt return to Busch Stadium against the Padres, 4 games at Busch beginning on Monday, and the Cardinals go back to just not being all too competitive. Now, they did end up in that 9th inning having a chance to not quite bring the tying run to the plate, but they were 1 batter away from doing so. But this was a game where Kyle Gibson just did not pitch well, and I am wondering if Kyle Gibson is almost pitching his way out of the Cardinals picking up that option for 2025. It was kind of a foregone conclusion to me earlier in the season that they do so, but he has really struggled of late. Has been kind of ping-ponging back and forth between solid starts and really, really rough ones, the type that just don't give you any chance at all to win. 7 runs allowed, didn't get through the 5th. That's the second game in a row where he has allowed 7 runs and didn't get, or I should say 2 out of 3, and did not get through the 5th. Sandwiched a big start against Milwaukee, 5 1/3, 2 runs in between the two there, and that was the game the Cardinals won on the Arenado walk-off grand slam. But this is getting to be kind of dire straits now for Gibby, who's got a 4.54 ERA, and more than being dire straits for Gibby, like we can be honest about where it is, it's dire straits for the St. Louis Cardinals, who drop below 500. They're 65 and 66. There's a long way to go. Long way to go for this Cardinals team to be able to mount any sort of challenge in the wildcard standings. The Cubs are actually ahead of the Cardinals right now in the Central. Cubs are sitting right at 500. The Cardinals a half game back of Chicago because they are a game below. The Braves, 11 games above 500. Cardinals are 6 back in the wild card. They've got 3 teams ahead of them before even getting to the Braves, and you can just forget about being able to catch the Padres at this point. Cardinals are 9 games, back of San Diego. There was a thought and a hope that maybe you could sweep the Padres and really bring them back to the table here, but that's not going to happen now that the Cardinals have lost the first game, and it's kind of hard to imagine the Cardinals winning 3 straight against San Diego after last night, the way that they pitched. Like, they battled offensively. You know, you can give them credit. We haven't gotten a chance yet on the channel to talk about the Wilson Contreras injury. That's a huge bummer. It doesn't necessarily end your season by itself, because we do recall the last time Contreras was out for a while, the Cardinals ended up playing some pretty good baseball in his absence. But to think they're just going to lose a middle-order bat and have the rest of the guys pick up the slack offensively seems unlikely. We did see in the game on Monday, though, Mason Wynn go 3 for 4, Burleson 3 for 5, and Donnie 3 for 4. Donnie had the triple. Mason Wynn had himself a double, as did Burleson. Those 3 guys have been kind of your heartbeat. Arenado kind of trending back the other direction with an 0 for 5 yesterday, but still at a 721 OPS. He's been okay. Von Herrera, of course, is back now that Wilson Contreras is out with the injury. They're going to plug him into the lineup and see. But Goldie down there with the 670 OPS still. Luken Baker got a couple of ABs last night. His OPS is pretty high, of course, with the home run. Took the 3 walks in that start over the weekend. Luken Baker, I would like to see probably continue to get some opportunities, but, man, it's just a little bit too few and far between in terms of the offensive contributors. They were 3 for 11 with RISP last night. They had 11 hits. They just didn't convert for enough runs, but it was one of those games, again, where you get behind the 8 ball early. You're down 4-1 after top of the third. You're down 7-2 after the top of the fifth. Kyle Gibson just did not pitch well enough to give the Cardinals a chance. The walks are uncharacteristic, but we've said that enough times now where maybe it's more characteristic of the way that Gibby is performing recently. Had 4 walks in that game, 7 runs allowed, and as I mentioned, did not get through the fifth, just the 1 homer allowed. Liberatore is still a bright spot. Like, there are bright spots from this bullpen. Libby, a couple of scoreless innings. The bullpen didn't give up anything. 4 2/3 scoreless that allowed the Cardinals to have the on-deck circle occupied by a guy who could have theoretically tied the game there in the bottom of the ninth, but just weren't able to continue stringing enough hits together to materialize that situation. The thing I want to talk about, though, is a topic that was getting some play last night from a variety of sources, and that's the attendance. For years, I would joke that the Cardinals would never announce fewer than 30,000, even if it was, there were only 15,000 in the stands. Yeah, tickets sold and the ballpark passes, and they're going to announce 30,000 one way or another. Well, it had gotten to a point where and here's how I know they were straining to keep it above 30,000, that when you suddenly aren't announcing 30,000, it's not 29,995, it's 28,697, right? It's like they're not really even remotely close to that 30,000 sold mark, and the fans are speaking loudly with that. In ballpark, maybe half that, right? I'll be down at the ballpark Tuesday, wasn't there Monday, but a lot of conversation about just Busch Stadium not looking like people are used to seeing it. And the opposing broadcast as well was weighing in on this. I'm going to play you a clip from the Padres broadcast. Dan Orsillo and Mark Rant, Cardinals Talk the Redbird Way, posted this video clip on Twitter. Just listen to the way that they're talking about it. The other team coming into Busch, they know what Cardinals fans and Cardinals Nation has been like over the years. Here's the other team talking about it.
I'll be honest with you. I want to get this right out of the way. We are in St. Louis, Busch Stadium. This is not the Busch Stadium I am used to.
No.
Late August, early September. Usually it's packed. The Redbirds are in the race. It is a different vibe here.
Yep, it's shocking.
It is shocking.
Not used to this ever.
Guys, that's the top of the first inning. That's the first batter of the game, the conversation between Dan Orsillo and Mark Grant of the Padres TV broadcast. That is, it's jarring, right? And it's jarring if you see the imagery and the cameras panning to, see that the stadium is just, there's nobody there. But it's not like well, who's that an indictment on? Is it an indictment on Cardinals fans? Or do you take it the direction of, this is an indictment on the organization that has allowed for the fans who have historically been so very strong and supportive. This is what we were talking about when Bill DeWitt the third made those just, I don't know how else to say them, but just wrong, plainly tone-deaf comments on the podcast with Martin Kilcoyne earlier in the year where he said, well, I just, I kind of laugh about the idea that fans would say they're going to boycott the games because all we do is take our revenue and pour it back into the team. The job of the team is to perform. The job of the club is to build a winner that fans feel like they have incentive to support. Not to, continue. And look, that's not Bill DeWitt III's role. John Mozeliak's role is to run the baseball ops side. But Bill DeWitt's talking about the revenues aspect of it and the payroll and what that can do. And as far as fans are concerned of, maybe not wanting to show up to games and the impact that could have, it kind of felt very tone deaf when he made those comments because it was like, well, is that a threat to the fans of you? If you don't show up to support this mediocre product, we're going to give you an even worse one? That's where we just all had some issue with the way that, and look, I think Bill DeWitt III does a largely very good job on the business side. I thought that was a tone-deaf moment for him. But look, now we're seeing the team not perform, and you're seeing fans say, yeah, we're not really into it. We don't really like what we see. So, threaten to have a worse product if you want, but that's just an endless vicious cycle. If you're going to say, well, we're not going to support because we don't like what we see, and the ownership turns around and says, well, if you don't like what you see, you're really not going to like it tomorrow. What does that do? What does that serve to do for the benefit of ownership to say, yep, we're just going to pack up shop and not really have a competitive payroll? I don't know if that's what it's going to be, but you can see right now that Cardinals fans are speaking very loudly with the way that they feel about the team and the product that they have been watching this year. It has not been up to Cardinals standards by any means. And whether that is going to inspire some change in the offseason or if it's going to be maybe more of the same where ownership says, oh, well, if you're not supporting the team, we can't afford to. I mean, it's not supposed to work that way. It's supposed to be the other way around. You put a product out there that fans are proud to represent, and they are going to be more than happy to line ownership's pockets and give them the money. Shut up and take my money. If you're talking about a World Series caliber team, Cardinals fans would be the Futurama meme with Fry holding up the cash and saying, shut up and take my money. Cardinals fans are more than happy to support it when it looks like that. But when it looks like this, like, we don't have to put lipstick on a pig. It's not being mean to the team to say that they're not good enough. They're 6 games back. They could maybe make a charge. I'm leaving room, but they're below 500 after 131 games. Like, that's what they are. The baseball season's fair. Remember, Paul Goldschmidt said it last year. It's fair. Over 162 games in 6 months, baseball will tell you what kind of team you are. That's what we're getting told by the Cardinals right now, is that they're just a mediocre average team, right? And not a team that looks primed to make a run for the playoffs. Their former manager comes in, and I know that this is the narrative. A lot of people say, well, if Schultz was here, this wouldn't be happening. I mean, you're entitled to that opinion. I don't happen to share it. I think the problems run much deeper than anything that's happening on the field staff, and it's to do with roster building and the like. But yeah, I mean, it's not a good look when Mike Schultz back in town and everybody can remember, oh yeah, why did they fire that guy? Philosophical differences with the front office. What has the front office been able to put together since then? Oh, right, it doesn't really look that good. Yeah, I mean, that's what we're talking about here. So, and that's part of why I think fans harp on it so much and the Mike Schultz stuff. They weren't maybe really even that upset when Mike Schultz left. People were very frustrated with Mike Schultz. I've always made the case, and it's accurate, that any Cardinal manager the fan base would turn on. It doesn't matter who it is. Tony La Russa was complained about ad nauseum when he was the manager, Hall of Fame manager, right? It would not matter. That is, I will go to my grave with that belief, and that includes Yadier Molina. If you think you want Yadier Molina as the manager, you all will turn on him within 6 months. I promise you. Promise you. So it's just, and yes, winning cures that. But the moment you're a 500 team, it's the manager's fault. Now, I'm not saying that Ollie Marmol has done a perfect job this season and last, because the manager's job is ultimately to win. But I believe that so much more of the Cardinals' issues stem deeper than that. And you could certainly make a case that they didn't nail the coaching hires. A couple of years of the lack of performance from the offense and, pitching staff, I think you could see the personnel and go, yeah, makes sense that it's kind of just a mediocre pitching staff. The rotation, they had a plan coming in, but that was the one the front office decided upon, and I liked it for a while. I said, look, I can see that you just need to have the bottom not fall out of your rotation like it did last year in 2023, so sign these veterans that have been around the block. We're seeing all these veterans hit a wall at the same time, are we not? Kyle Gibson, Sonny Gray, those guys are hit. Sonny Gray, I talked about it. He's not this innings eater that in our minds we think that he is. Right, Sonny Gray, I'm going to read it for you. I've done this before on the show, but I'm going to do it again to reiterate that this was Mozeliak's plan, all right? I could get on board with it if I squinted and see, okay, mid-pack rotation, top-end bullpen, top-end offense. Offense has not been top-end. Bullpen has been, as advertised. Rotation, dipping in ERA in recent weeks, down to about the bottom 5 or so in baseball. I can find it for you before the show ends if you want. Sonny Gray, I'm just going to read his innings. 2014, 219. Back in 2015, he had 208 innings pitched. Was a workhorse at age 25. Next year, 117 innings, missed 10 starts or so. Next year, was traded in the middle of the season, 162 innings, pretty good. 2018, 130 innings. Missed some starts, came back in the bullpen. 2019, 175 innings, all-star campaign with the Reds. Good innings load. 2020 was 56 innings. That was the COVID year. 2021, 135 innings. 2022, 119 innings. Both those years missed a handful of starts or more. Last year with the Twins, didn't miss a start, 184 innings. But what tends to happen is the next year for Sonny Gray, not a robust innings load. Has thrown a good number of innings this year. He's at 141, but the quality of those innings we're seeing decline at the end, as he is not used to. You can go back, 2015, it sounded great. He was 200 inning seasons in a row. Since then, has not had a back-to-back seasons of 140 innings in the last 10 years. There's not been consecutive seasons until now, 23-24, where he's thrown 140-plus innings in 2 consecutive years. So it's either been body breaks down a little bit, needs some time off, doesn't give you the workload, or now he's finally giving the workload in consecutive seasons, 140 after 184 last year, but the performance we're seeing decline a little bit. Is he breaking down at times? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know if that's a fair characterization. I do know that the numbers are the numbers. He hasn't had this level of workload following a season in which he did pitch a bunch in a decade. Right? 9 years, basically. 2014, 2015. So what's that mean for Sonny Gray? Is Kyle Gibson at age 36 wearing down? Certainly seems to be the case with what the inconsistencies of his recent performance. And he'll turn 37 in October. Lance Lynn told Jim Hayes, I saw this on the broadcast last night, was Jim asked him about the knee, and if it's better, he said the knee is the knee. I just need to be able to pitch with it. All right, so Lance Lynn's still dealing with the knee. Like, it's not going to magically get better, but they'll probably throw him back in the rotation. They are, to their credit, making him go to a rehab start, it sounds like. I thought they were just going to let Lance Lynn kind of dictate that he didn't want to do a rehab start, come right back in. That doesn't seem to be the case. But at this point, it's a little easier to imagine who he could replace because Gibby's struggled, and I guess you can't replace Sonny Gray, but Gibby's spot, he could go on the IL for 15 days or something if the struggles there's anything physical behind them, and I'm sure that you could come up with a reason. They're all dealing with something physically, right? But their rotation's kind of not holding up through 6 months. It held up through 4.5 months, but we're starting to see cracks. In that version of the Cardinals, the way that Mo wanted to build the rotation was based on having an elite offense is what was going to make that work, and they haven't even had that. I mean, they certainly have not had that. So, yeah, I can't blame fans for not showing up to games. You've got other priorities, other things you're doing in your lives. I get it. I don't blame them one bit. I mean, I think the organization has brought this on by sort of telling everybody, hey, we need buy-in from the fans to trust this process, etc. And then the process does what? Like it's gone off the rails at this point. We have not seen now two consecutive years of that being a successful process. So what are fans to do? Are fans to say, that's fine? I think the messaging of the Cardinals is going to have to change. If next year is going to be sort of a let's find the foundation and we're going to build this thing back, but it's not going to happen overnight, that needs to be articulated by the organization in an effective way because they're 20th in OPS this year at 697 across MLB. That ranks 20th. They're 24th in runs scored across MLB. They're a bottom 10 offense, period. The end. That's their numbers. If they have a great month to finish the season, we'll be able to say they weren't a bottom 10 offense. But it doesn't lie. You can like the names on paper, and I did coming into the season, but the names on paper have not ultimately performed up to expectations. They're 19th in ERA, so barely not a bottom 10 pitching staff. 19th. And look, that if they had a top 10 offense, I think 19th in ERA could have managed to get you to be one of the top 12 teams or so in baseball. Starters ERA, they're 23rd, 4.53. Even that could have been enough, but the offense, it's not fair to pin it on the offense because the starting rotation ERA has been as bad as the offense in terms of the ranks across MLB. Bullpen ranks 8th with a 3.62 ERA. That's the one unit that's panned out. But just the way it was built inherent upon having to have an offense that carries you, right? You can't say, well, it's not the offense's fault. They're in the same ranking around MLB as the pitching staff is, but it's the offense because they designed the team knowing that the offense was going to be the thing that carried them, and it hasn't been. So I'm not even saying that it's a perfect, well, everybody could have seen this coming, because I didn't think the offense would be this bad. I thought, worst case, they're mid-pack, and they don't make the playoffs as a result. Reasonable median projection, they're like top 10, but the names like Arenado, Goldschmidt have both underperformed. Walker, vastly underperformed. Gorman, vastly underperformed. Newpar, vastly underperformed. I'll say it. Donovan, little bit under. Mason Wynn, little over. Bertelson, little over. Contreras, little over. But, I mean, more than half the names, and it's the ones that you were expecting to be at the tip-top of the lineup and right in the heart that have been not just underperforming, but drastically underperforming. So, that's kind of where we're at this point, watching this Cardinals team. And if ownership wants to make fans more emboldened to ignore their product, they can take the approach of it's the fans' fault for not showing up. But I think it's the way this team has been built. It's not meeting the expectations, and school has, of course, started. It's just juice ain't worth the squeeze for a lot of folks, and I think that's right. Are Cardinals fans a little bit spoiled? Perhaps, because anybody of the last 20 years, 26 years, if you want to date it all the way back to 98 when the home run chase kind of began this era of Cardinals baseball. There was a couple of years in between, maybe 1 year in between where they weren't as competitive, but like by 2000, they had it cooking. I believe that was like the Rick Ankiel rookie year and made the playoffs, and they mostly make the playoffs. That's what Cardinals fans of this generation are used to seeing. The old heads remember a different way, but they have also become accustomed to the excellence. Like, look, if you want to talk about the greatness of this organization and kind of, flaunt your feathers and everything, then you can do that, but you have to keep doing the things that made you great, or you're not at that stage of your organization anymore. It's ushering in a different era. So is it fair to say like 500 team and people are just totally out, whereas in some cities like the White Sox, you don't get any attendance there, I'm sure, but they're one of the worst teams in baseball historically. Cardinals aren't that. They're just average. They're mediocre. They're middle of the pack. And until the record improves, it's okay to call them that this year. And especially coming on the heels of last year, I know that they wanted so badly to separate what last year was and this year, but you don't get to do that. You don't get to decide the terms of the deal if you're the Cardinals, of the way that the public perceives you. You can tell us that it was an anomaly last year. It's incumbent upon you to show the fan base and show the media and show the public that it was an anomaly by putting together a better product this year and say, oh, wow, that was a one-off. This is not a sign of a stark decline of the organization under John Mozeliak's front office. But here we are, right? And so you can't necessarily claim anomaly anymore. 17-game win streak would come in real handy right now, but I've made the claim over and over. They've used that up for the century. So they've had their shot at that. Cardinals fans, you let me know what you think. I don't know. There's always room for the team. They had been playing better, right? They've only lost one game in this Padres series. Maybe they still win 3 or 4, and we're talking about 3 straight series wins. But after the stadium looked like it looked last night, and the performance by your starter kind of dictated the score at the end of the game, it makes you kind of feel like, all right, they're kind of back into the doldrums here. They did play better against the Twins for 2 of those 3 games. They did play better against the Brewers, and frankly, they played better against the Dodgers. But the standings dictate, and the hole that you've dug for yourselves dictates that that's not really enough to champion the efforts and say, hey, we're back. They got to at least split this Padres series, and that would get them to back at 500. But at some point, you're going to have to start sweeping some teams. So they're on the brink for sure, and they've been, and most people are out on them anyway. So they would say, stop talking about this team like relative to the playoffs. It's not happening. I'm going to continue to say that it's possible. I do think there's talent on this team, but there are a variety of reasons that I don't think it's being maximized, and I don't think it was built with quite enough talent and quite enough the right places on the roster coming in. But let me know, Cardinals fans, what you think. Wanted to make sure to jump on here and record a quick B-Schaeff Daily for y'all so that we could carry this thing forward. Apologies for the missed days of the weekend, but we'll be back in full force here after my trip. I say that. I am going to the farm for Labor Day weekend, but I do bring my laptop for that, and so I will keep up and record Cardinal stuff for that trip as well. But thank you guys for the support on the channel all season. You guys are the reason it's happened, so appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to you next time on B-Schaeff Daily. Peace.